Pan-African Review is a platform that challenges assumptions about Africa and a space for introspective perspectives on matters of concern to Africans. Hello and welcome to the Pan-African Review. This is your online spot for African discourse. I am your host, Mahatma Ulimwengu, and today we have a very special show for you coming straight from Dar es Salaam in extremely, uniquely humid environments, hence my sweating, so I hope you forgive that. So today our guest for you is Dr. Jude Kagoro. He holds a doctoral degree in sociology obtained in 2013 at Beirut University in Germany. He's a research fellow at the Institute for Intercultural and International Studies, Bremen University in Germany. So we want to discuss with him to have a brief conversation and an honest reflection about the ongoings in Somalia. And he's obviously been doing some very interesting and intriguing research into Uganda's role, for instance, and other African blocs and international blocs, Western influences in Somalia. Why is that conflict always raging on? There are always developments going on. Some might not be quite as famous or popular as others, but the conflict rages on. So hopefully he can enlighten us as to the ongoings. Let us invite him, and we will be back with Dr. Jude Kagoro. Hi there. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you. How's it going?
I'm really great, and thank you for your patience. Yeah, it's great to have you on the Pan-African Review podcast.
I'm happy to be here.
Right, so you said you're in Nairobi now.
Yeah, right now I'm in Nairobi.
Right.
I have to do some interviews here, there are quite a number of Somalis here.
So,
right.
Yeah, to jump straight into it, you were in Mogadishu early on this year. Was it July, right?
Yeah. Yes, I was.
Right. So to start us off, could you briefly explain to us the history behind the persistent conflicts in Somalia?
When we go back to history, Somalia also has a very unique colonial history because you have there was some part that was French, that is the current Djibouti.
Right.
And then you have Somaliland, which was controlled by the British. Then you have other parts of Somalia controlled by the Italians. Then you have the Ethiopian Empire, which also controls some spaces. And so it's complicated. But despite that, after independence in 1960, there seems to be a very healthy democracy growing between 1960 until 1969, when Said Barre took over government through a coup. And that's when things, I think, started. This is when the idea of democracy started collapsing.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
And then there were 22 years in power of Said Barre, creating what he called scientific socialism, trying to.
Sorry. You said scientific. Sorry, you said scientific what?
Socialism. That's what he called it.
Oh, scientific socialism. Okay.
Yeah, and tried to first strengthen his relationship with the Soviet Union, and also collapse the clan system in Somalia, and promoted the elite. So it was okay until many experts actually think that you can trace the current conflict to 1977-78 Ogaden War, the war between Ethiopia and Somalia.
Right.
So when Said Barre was in power, this Pan-Somali idea was quite strong. The Pan-Somali idea here means Somalis, wherever they were, had to be under one roof, like under one state. And that was the ill I think it was ill-advised attempt to reclaim Ogaden from the Ethiopians. So the Pan-Somali idea drove Said-Barre into Ethiopia. At that time, Somalia was had one of the strongest armies on the continent. Um, so when they entered, they scored a lot of successes in the beginning, and they occupied a lot of territory in the Ogaden. And then later, odds changed, especially when the Soviet Union disapproved what Somalia was doing and provided advisors, about 1,500. And then the Cubans came in and they pushed Somalia out. So Somalia faced a lot of, casualties. There was a lot of losses, and now also tribal, the different clans, started accusing each other. You lost more soldiers than us. The commanders are more from this side than this side. And
Right.
then their opposition, armed opposition based on clans, started fighting Side Barre's regime. Now,
Okay.
yeah,
No. Carry on. Sorry.
but yeah. So when they started fighting Side Barre's regime, there was they were very brutal counter insurgency operations that killed quite a number of people, like a lot of people, like in the northeast, in the northern Somalia and other places. And but of course, the conflicts persisted until these groups were able to collapse Said Barre regime in 1991.
Okay.
But when they collapsed Said Barre regime, these were not unified groups. They were different. They were multiple clans.
Mm.
All right. So they collapsed Said Barre, and then there was a vacuum and serious competition now amongst the clans now that had won the war
Okay.
against Said Barre. And so that's how Somalia disintegrated.
Yeah.
Uh, and then there came the United Nations, Unison 1 and 2 in the early 90s, 92 to be exact.
Okay.
The United
So
Nations operation in Somalia.
yeah, so in recent times though, why do you think it has been so difficult still to this day to defeat Al-Shabaab in Somalia?
Okay, one, I think the African Union troops have done a commendable job. Because when you look at history, what was existing before, it was like hell, really. There was nothing. Even the government that was in place was operating in Nairobi. I'm sure you know that.
Hmm.
And they couldn't operate in Somalia. So later, we had the emerging power of the Islamic courts, which had some sort of established control, but at the same time not very trusted because the ideology was a bit complicated. They were threatening Ethiopia, going there to attack them again. They were, they were. So Ethiopia came in and also overthrew the Islamic courts, and of course, further chaos emerged in Somalia
Okay.
until the African Union established AMZOM, and then the Ugandan troops went there under heavy gunfire, of course, heavy gunfire in 2007, and they have created green belts. And when you see what African troops have done there, it's quite commendable because they are. It's we are even talking of. I was even able to go there. We are
Yeah.
even talking of embassies reopening because after the chaos, all embassies actually closed.
Hmm.
The American and the embassy was closed. The British embassy was closed. All until the African Union troops were created those green belts, and then we have seen these even Western countries establishing embassies there, re-establishing embassies there.
Yeah, so why is Al-Shabaab still a persistent threat, do you think, in Somalia?
Okay, it is a persistent threat because, okay, one, the idea is widespread, all right? And because of chaos, because of breakdown in society, they had created pockets that they control and, establish some sort of justice system, for instance,
Right.
whether it's justice or I don't know how we can call it, but some semblance of that, where people could go and their problems are addressed. And yeah, some sort of brutal order. You can also establish some sort of brutal order. And then of course they have this ideology of Islamic ideology. They have to run the country under the like some sort of a theocracy, creating an Islamic state, which is clear. And remember, maybe 99, I don't know the percentages, but almost everybody there, Somalia is an Islamic state up to now, of course. So Islam is quite important there. And then at the same time, fighting against Western influence, according to them, they want to run the country according to Islam. So they have time on their side. They know the territory. They can recruit. And the problem is that they have infiltrated different sectors of the economy. They have infiltrated even government itself. Even the Somali National Army is heavily infiltrated. That is known. And then, so sometimes you may not know where Al Shabaab is, or where it's not, where it stops, where it is, you know.
Right.
It's very fluid.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Now,
very fluid.
yeah, no, that makes sense. So there have
Yes.
been attempts to help build a national army that would replace the African Union peacekeepers. So what have been the main obstacles to the success of this capacity building endeavor?
Okay. Yeah, that is good. They have tried to build the force. The force. Based on my findings, I find some problems, a lot of problems, especially there is no unity in doctrine. We have the Somali National Force. They are being trained from different places, all right? Like some are trained in Uganda, some are trained in Eritrea, in Ethiopia, in Egypt, and but there's no unity in doctrine. Some of them even salute differently,
Right.
And then on top of that, there is something I find very dangerous, like what Americans are doing, and also the Turkish are doing. America has created an army within an army in the Somali National Army.
Right.
That army is called the Danab, lightning. It is Somali word for lightning, Danab.
Okay.
Believed to be between 2,000 to 3,000. So this is an army that they recruit, train, and pay, and
Right.
keep together. All right. And then the Turkish have replicated the same model. They created the Gorgor.
The Gorgo.
It's called Gorgor.
Okay.
Yeah, they train, they recruit. They go through recruitment. They recruit themselves.
Right.
They recruit, they train, they pay, and even maintain these troops. All right.
Mm.
And then the Turkish actually have gone even further to even create a police force.
Right.
Yeah, and then coupled with the problem of infiltration by the Al Shabaab. For instance, when I was there on July 24th, July 24th, yes, there was an attack on a military
Yeah.
barracks in Mogadishu.
Yeah,
inside Mogadishu.
yeah.
And that attack was actually, even some soldiers were arrested because it was an inside job.
Mm.
Yeah, like some senior members of the Somali National Army actually enabled Al Shabaab to execute this mission.
Okay.
So there is that aspect of infiltration. Then the other aspect is, I think some of the troops are not well paid. Sometimes the flights are delayed, and then some have deserted or have run. Some have actually joined Al Shabaab. Some have joined clan militias where they are even better paid. Some have allegiance to clans.
Right. Yeah.
And
So
yeah, that is on one side. Then on the other side, remember, this Somali National Army is not in Puntland.
right.
Hmm?
Yeah.
That there is another army altogether, and then also Somaliland, you know the story,
Yeah.
has another army. So I see these as huge obstacles. And then, of course, I think we need more time to build
Right.
doctrine, yeah, unity doctrine, to build a more solid, trusted force, to build a command structure, because some people are hurried through the ranks, to be able to stand against the Al Shabaab. But as it is right now, I'm skeptical. I think they need more time, and perhaps the African Union troops should be even supported more, so that at least Al Shabaab is degraded.
Yeah, so on that note, on the June 3rd, 2023, Andrew Mwenda, a Ugandan political analyst, recently wrote a piece in The Independent titled Time to Get Out of Somalia, in which he said that given the failure of foreign intervention, it is time for AU troops to leave Somalia, even if that would result in Al Shabaab taking over control. So, firstly, what do you think of his arguments, and how can we justify the continued military presence of AU troops? I mean, you did justify it a bit, but when do we actually say it is time to get out and let the people of Somali take control of their affairs? Is there any assessment of the AU mission?
Okay, yes. Well, to me, I think that argument is. Well, I've heard that particular argument with him in particular.
Right.
We have discussed about this, and I disagree. I disagree with him because when you get to Somalia, you can understand what we're talking about. Because you cannot allow a terror organization to build and consolidate.
Mm.
Yeah, because that will not only be a problem of Somalia, it will be a problem of everybody. I
Right.
mean, Uganda was bombed in 2010. You remember very well, July 2010. Kenya has faced a lot of these attacks, and they can be elsewhere. They can be all over the place because the idea is also to export this ideology. It's not only limited to the boundaries of Somalia. So I do not agree with the fact that we should let a terror organization build capacity and consolidate.
Right.
What I think can be done well is if we can coherently um, build a Somali force coherently. Not, I've already told you about my own misgivings of what is going on there.
Okay.
Remember, we also have the British who are also training, and they have a training school there. We have Qatar is also there. We have UAE, yeah, is also there. So there are different countries doing different things, according to my assessment.
Mm.
All right, and that's to me, that's where the problem is.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Yes, that's
outside.
where the problem is.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
because but if all these efforts were going towards one goal
right.
coherently, then we can be able to create a very peaceful Somalia.
Yeah. So, like on that note, actually, because like you mentioned like outside influence. So there have been border disputes with Kenya, and there's reports that Somalia has rebuffed Ethiopia's bid to get direct access to the sea. This is like a two-parter. First, do you think disputes with Kenya are resolved, or if not, will they be resolved in the foreseeable future? And secondly, what do you make of Ethiopia's ambitions to build a navy and get direct access to the Red Sea. Ethiopian authorities say it is an existential issue. Do you think this demand can create tensions with Ethiopia's neighbors, Somalia in particular?
All right. Yeah. So the border conflicts are not new.
Right.
The border conflicts are quite old. I've already explained to you about the Ogaden War. There was also what they call the Shufran. I don't remember the exact word, between Kenya and Somalia. The clashes. So the border conflicts have always been there, and I think they're not limited to Somalia. Border conflicts are all over the place. We've had Cameroon, Nigeria. We have had Uganda, Kenya on Migingo, and other places. Because we are dealing with a problem that was not our own creation. It's a problem that was created in Berlin in 1980. During the colonial process. All right. It is not African in a way, and then we find ourselves dealing with this issue. And I think there are many border conflicts almost all over the place. Even if you go to North Africa, you go to, there are always those border conflicts. Yeah. So, and then, that was one of the issues actually that's also a little tricky with the troop contributing countries in Somalia, because you have Kenya, which has also some conflicts, are being accused of even internal interference in the domestic affairs, politics of Somalia, especially in Jubaland. Jubaland is one of the states of Somalia. And in Somalia, the states are quite strong. The state authority is quite strong. And then also Kenya has sometimes recognized Somaliland, and this back and forth. That conflict is there, and of course Ethiopia the same. And then there are some sentiments. There's some people, some Somali politicians, who claimed that for them Kenya and Somalia don't want a strong. Kenya and Ethiopia don't want a strong Somalia. That is something that I've not interrogated further, but the perception exists.
Yeah.
Perception is quite important to interrogate, because whether it is true or not, it's important that if somebody is thinking that, it's important that you address their fears. So, and then, of course, now there comes the issue of Ethiopia trying to gain access to the sea. They had it and they lost it before because of, because Eritrea, got independence from Ethiopia and all these things. But anyways, many countries would love to do that. Many countries would love to have direct access to the sea, but I think this is something that has to be seriously discussed, because it can create a lot of conflict. I think the African Union should also do more than what they're doing right now. Instead of putting out a begging bowl to the European Union and the rest, give money, give this. I think if the African Union can put together resources, if countries were able to contribute enough into the peace and security initiatives, that can even it can create even a bigger. We can generate wonderful results, not only in Ethiopia but even across the continent. Entirely in their hands. They still need support, in my opinion.
Right. All right. Well, yes. Dr. Jude Kagoro, thank you very much for taking some time out to speak to us about this. And this will be an ongoing discussion. So I hope you're free in the foreseeable future. If there's any developments that you want to talk specifically about, we're always open to that dialogue. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome, brother. Thank you.
All right. Cheers. Have a good day.
Oh, yeah, you too.
If you guys are so inclined, if you like this content, please leave a like, leave a comment, tell us your thoughts, share it to your friends and family. This is the Pan-African Review podcast, and we're trying to get as many voices involved as possible, because this effort, this goal of letting Africa stand as a united sovereign entity, takes everybody's help. including yours. And you can help in the most minute way possible. Just leave a like, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and let us know how we can move forward.